Welcome to day 2 of my Just Buy the Cheap-ish Things cooking challenge. Now, I won't clutter up the start of this video with a reiteration of the entire rules and parameters and premise. Pop over to part 1 if you want that. It's linked in this card and in the video description. But basically, didn't have a budget, just had to go and buy cheap-ish things or cheapest things from 8 different categories. Anyway, breakfast. And I think breakfast today is just going to be, again, simple. And that's going to be spaghetti hoops on toast, maybe with a bit of cheese on top. Just the one slice of toast, I think. And this is about 2/3 of a can of spaghetti hoops. I used the 1/3 in my soup last night. Now, those look a bit gloopy to me, so I am going to just use a tiny little bit of water in there to ease it along. So that's going to go over to the cooker. I'll just warm those up on the cooker while my toast is cooking. Whoa, nearly lost that one. So, hoops are heated up, and that sauce has loosened quite a lot. I'm going to try to just allow that sauce to drain a little bit, because I've got a feeling I might need to keep some sauce for later. So is this a thing that people do? It absolutely is. Beans on toast is a thing that people have quite a lot here in the UK. It's quite a popular sort of snack meal, a light meal or easy meal. Spaghetti hoops on toast, again, it's the same idea, but of course these are cheaper. Not everybody likes beans. That seems like a generous portion. That's now mostly sauce, but that's fine. I'm going to save that and try and strain the sauce out. We will have with this one of these slices of cheese. And I think I'll just tear that up and kind of toss it on there so it's not just one great big slab. This will melt a little bit. Okay, well, that is breakfast. I'm going to take that to the table because it needs eating with a knife and fork. Yep, and you can see that cheese is already starting to melt a little bit in there. Now, again, nothing very elaborate or skillful about the preparation here, but that's not the point. This is just to get me going today. And when you have sauce things like this on toast, yeah, the toast does go a bit soggy, but that's part of the fun. And the cheese does rescue this from being a plate of almost entirely carbs, although there is protein in bread. So these hoops, this is why I'm not really much of a fan of them. It's pasta, but where it's been cooked in the can, it's just so soft. I mean, it's all right. And actually this sauce on these is better than the sauce I had on the last time I had a tin of spaghetti hoops on one of these challenges. I think that was from Morrison's. The sauce in that was really quite vinegary. This one isn't. This is quite a mild and sweet tomatoey sauce. It's not a robust tomato flavour by any means. In fact, I would say on the whole it's a kind of bland tasting sauce, but it does the job. So that was breakfast, very simple, but at least it was quick. And now it's time to get the dog out, see if I can do that bit of foraging and think about what I'm going to make for the rest of the day. The key challenge for today is I only have bread as my kind of staple. And if we're not making things on toast or sandwiches, how are we going to use the bread? So, as I say, I want to reserve this sauce, but I don't really want the hoops. So I'm going to stand here and kind of strain them out. Like that. I think this is too thick to go through a sieve, so I'm just going to pull them to the edge like that. Let the sauce drain out of the spoonful. Well, I'll save that. I might just blend those in. Time to prepare lunch. Now, foraging is permitted on this challenge, and foraging has yielded 1 or 2 things this morning. So I've got some wood ear mushrooms here. These are found commonly growing on elder trees, and I haven't got any on the elder trees on my property, but you don't have to, if there's elder trees in the neighbourhood, you don't have to go very far to find these. I've rehydrated these because they were a bit wrinkly on the tree, but that's fine because you just pop them in water and they plump back up. It's almost like magic. Somewhere on another video I've got a time lapse of that happening actually. It's quite interesting to watch. Anyway, so we've got some wood ear mushrooms, but I'm going to save them for dinner, I think. There is also some crow garlic. Crow garlic is a lot like chives, and this is the right time of year. End of January, start of February is the right time of year if you want to pick it for its green leaves. Later in the year it produces little bulbils at the top of the stalk instead of flowers, or as well as flowers in some cases. But this time of year it's a lot like chives or spring onions, a little bit coarser. Lovely oniony flavour. You do have to be careful because it pops up at the same time as other spring bulbs like snowdrops and daffodils, which are poisonous. This is not poisonous. This is crow garlic, and yeah, you can recognise it from the smell. It's a bit like the leaves of chives, but they have a kind of ridged feel to them. So when you roll them in your fingers like that, you can feel little ridges, and there is a strong onion aroma. So these are going to go in my lunch. Lunch is going to be some kind of fried sandwich. You know, like croque monsieur is like a fried ham and cheese sandwich, isn't it? Or fried ham sandwich or whatever. This is going to be something like that, but with chicken in the middle. And I'm going to use this raw chicken that I reserved yesterday, but I'm going to mince it right down and make chicken patties, because then I can jam some other flavours in here. So into the food processor, my chicken, the crusts of bread that I reserved from yesterday. Today's herb, which is going to be sage. So we are allowed one herb, one spice, one sauce. So today's herb is going to be sage, and there's about a teaspoonful of it going in there. A good pinch of salt. And also, because this chicken is dark meat chicken, this will have a tendency to go grey when it's cooked. Just to help it along a little bit, we're going to have some of these roasted carrots, which I reserved from yesterday. Just the carrots. That will help to keep this nice and moist as well. I'm going to process it down before I put the crow garlic pieces in. Right, that's nearly at the texture I want now. So now the crow garlic can go in. I'm going to cut this into short pieces, because otherwise this can tend to just wrap around the food processor blade. So I'll cut it into tiny little snips. And this will give this a bit of an onion flavour, which is good. There is garlic flavour on those carrots, but this will give it a little bit of onion, which will go very well with the sage. Sage and onion and chicken is a combination that we already know works. Okay, just enough really to incorporate that together. So that might look like a bit of an unpromising mix, but now I've got to form that into patties and get it frying. There might actually be enough here for two, but I think I might just make a really generous, great big thick one. Right, I'm going to put this in the cold pan because I need to smoosh it out some more without it just getting wrapped all over my fingers. Could use greaseproof paper or something to do that, but I might as well just put it in the cold pan, because I think I'm going to bring it to the heat slowly so I cook it evenly and don't burn it on the outside. Since I don't have a lot of fat to use. I've got some fat, but that needs to be saved for a later stage. Now it is the dark meat of the chicken, which does contain a bit more fat than white meat. So hopefully it will have enough natural fat in there to fry itself. One of the reasons for adding bread to things like this is to retain those fats and juices in the item, rather than let them render out and be lost. But yeah, I'm just going to let that sizzle now, slowly, over a low heat while I do the washing up. I think that's had enough cooking on one side that I can flip it now. Just, it's cooked enough to set. Yep. And that means I can squish it down some. And again, just going to leave it to gently sizzle on that side. I want a kind of sauce or ketchup to serve with this. And I think that's going to be made out of this, or at least some of this baked apple from yesterday. So this was baked in its skin. I think we're going to find that the apple pulp just easily scrapes out from inside the skin. And the apple I will kind of mash down a little bit with a fork here. And that's not going to do very much on its own, but I've got that tomato sauce that I reserved from the spaghetti hoops. I'll try and get it without the hoops. Too small an amount to put in any kind of blender I've got, so we're just going to have to mash that as best as we can. Conspicuous bits of hoops are coming out. So that apple and tomato ketchup can go into there. And checking back in on this chicken patty, I flipped it twice now. That's getting close to done. I will verify that by temperature probing it. Right, here's where we try and get a little bit clever. So, flip it, and then a couple of slices of cheese on there, something like that, and a slice of bread. We're not done yet. So the only fat I have for frying is the fat we reserved from roasting the chicken yesterday, plus a little bit of butter. I'm not putting that in just yet. It is my intention that this cheese will melt and run and fry a little bit on the edges. That's part of my cunning plan. Okay, so time to flip that again. But while it's out of the pan, the butter goes in. Tiny bit of butter, but just so that that bread can go on top of it. Another 2 slices of cheese, leaving me with only 2 slices left. Another slice of bread. I'm going to start adding a little bit of this chicken fat around the edges here, reserving enough to fry that other slice. There's about that much chicken fat left. So, just lift that up for a moment. Last bit of chicken fat is not completely dry, so that's why it's doing that. That chicken fat still had a bit of moisture in it actually, so that's why it was spitting like that. Now, moving it around like this helps the bread to mop up all of those bits of stray fat that might be in there. It's gone very melty. We're not far off serving now. Okay, right. Now the question is, are we going to get an Instagram cheese pull on this? Probably not, because most of the time those things are fake. Because, you know, when you cut things, well, there's a little bit there. The cheese has gone quite satisfyingly oozy. There we go, that's lunch. Crock something. Okay, it's probably too hot to bite into right now, but I feel like this is the kind of dish where you just have to do that anyway. That's so good. So this is essentially some kind of sausage in the middle here. Okay. That's really good on its own. It actually almost doesn't need a sauce. The chicken patty is incredibly moist, and I think the carrots and the breadcrumbs are actually partly responsible for that. Anyway, with the weird apple and whatever ketchup, it's all right. I don't think it needs it. I mean, it's okay because it's different. It just adds a bit of variety, but it's not actually necessary. This is delicious all on its own. And yeah, the cheese does definitely pull. No fakes. I'm not sure why that's seen as a good thing. It just makes it awkward to eat. Definitely, I'd make that again, because that's just such a tasty way to serve that chicken. It's really, really savoury. The flavour of the chicken really comes through. I think frying it in chicken fat probably is partly responsible for that. That was a very fine sandwich. The ketchup thing, it was nice to have that. Not really necessary. I suppose this is technically toast, isn't it? Okay. Good. There's no more. So day 2 dinner, and there's still plenty of food left. There is no shortage of food. What there is a shortage of different ways you can use white bread in the context of these other ingredients. I want to make something kind of slightly Asian inspired today, but it would be much better if I made this to go with rice or noodles. We don't have either of those things, and I'm not going to attempt to make noodles out of bread. I did consider rolling some slices of white bread flat and cutting it into thin ribbons to emulate noodles, but I don't think that's going to work. So I'm going to do a stir fry, and I think the bread is going to play a very minor role in this. We're going to make a crispy topping to go sprinkle on top of a vegetable and chicken stir fry. Don't forget, I get 1 sauce, 1 spice, 1 herb, and I haven't used my spice or sauce today. So sauce is going to be dark soy. Spice is going to be ginger. Fresh ginger would be better for this, but I've got some ground ginger. The flavour's different, but it still will hopefully give it the right kind of direction. I'm just going to clear the decks. We've also, by the way, got that huge jug of stock in the fridge as well, which I haven't used yet and may not use at all today. So first off, I've got quite a bit of chicken left, and I'm going to try and make a sticky Asian-inspired barbecue sauce to go with this. The chicken's already infused with garlic from the cooking process. Now I do feel the need to keep reminding you this is not the right way to do this. This is how you do it if you've only got these ingredients. So I've got some strawberry jam. Gonna have a big blob of strawberry jam in there. That I'm just gonna chuck in the microwave ever so quickly. Okay, there we go. That was just enough to melt that down. And that's gonna have a big splash of dark soy. That's more than I intended, but let's go with it. To mix in with that, which will hopefully keep it from setting again. Ground ginger is about probably half a teaspoonful there. And also a few little bits of crow garlic that I had left over from lunch. I'm going to snip them in there, really nice and small. Just snipping them in like that. So that's going to be like a sticky, almost barbecue sauce for the chicken. Don't want huge chunks, so I'll pull it apart and not completely shred it though. So there is enough chicken there for another meal. So it could go to 3 days this, but I'm not going to do that because the bread part of it is starting to get really monotonous. Just toss that chicken in that sauce. Next, I'm going to prepare my stir-fry vegetables. I say stir-fry vegetables. We've got carrots and we've got celery, and that's it. So I'm going to peel this carrot. Just top and tail it. And I think for the carrot, I'm going to sort of make some ribbons using the peeler. Can do it that way as well, but that blade doesn't seem to cut quite so well. A mandolin would make shorter work of this, of course, but I don't have one. Right, that's enough carrot. Celery, I'm going to use the roasted celery from yesterday. So I'll pick that out of here. Because to me, celery's nice raw and it's nice cooked until it's completely soft. In between, you get this kind of, this zone where it's watery and bitter and not very interesting. So we'll have all of the celery out of there. And again, these carrots could be used for something else, some other recipe tomorrow. I probably will make some more soup, but that won't happen in this video. So anyway, there's my vegetables. So there is going to be bread, but it's really just going to be like a topping. I think we can do that with just the crust. So I'm going to cut tiny little croutons. That's going to be all of the bread. I do also have a lot of chicken skin. So, and there's some fat in this as well. So this chicken skin might as well go all in. Yeah, I know, Eva, it's chicken, I know. Chicken is Eva's favourite animal. And we are more or less ready to kind of assemble a dish now. So, hot pan, chicken skin. Now, as soon as that starts sizzling, my bread goes in. Now, worth noting, I haven't used my fat or oil allowance yet today. The fat that I cooked lunch in was just saved from various things yesterday. So I've still got a tablespoon of fat or oil to play with. While that's cooking, my wood ear mushrooms, which aren't they amazing when they kind of swell up in the water. That's not all of them, by the way, so I'll see how this goes. So these are just going to get sliced into ribbons as well. And to be honest, this is the bit that really needed a bit of something adding anyway, because vegetables are kind of in short supply. So that's my stir-fry ingredients. That's not bad now. Crispy topping, well, you can hear it's different, but the bread's still slightly soft. So I'm just going to keep that on the move until that completely crisps up. I would say that's done now. You can tell just from the sound. Yeah, even the big pieces of bread are toasted. So I'm going to take that out of the pan, but I'll keep the pan because we've cooked the next thing in there as well. And the next thing is going to need a splash of oil. A half tablespoon measure here, because we'll see, we probably only need half a tablespoon of oil. Now at the moment there's nothing really to dress that with. I'm going to grate a bit of apple in there. Okay, and the other thing I've got is this chicken juice. Look at that. Stuff that came out of the roasting the chicken, the sort of dripping juices from the pan. And just let that melt and create a kind of sticky coating for it all. Tiny little pinch of salt. It won't need much because the celery was seasoned already. Okay, and the moment that starts to reduce again, I'm going to get that out and get the chicken in. I'll give that pan a little wipe round because it's going to be really sticky. And then my chicken goes in. And this isn't going to need much doing to it, just really needs warming through. So I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit, or else we'll end up turning it into chicken candy. So while the chicken's just warming through, let's put this together. So my stir fry vegetables, my sticky bubbling chicken on the other side, and then these crispy chicken skin croutons. I think we just have a little pile of that in the corner there. So there we go, that is dinner, a weird bowl of stir fry. Let's have just a taste of this chicken first. Okay, that's pretty good. You wouldn't know that was strawberry jam in there, just sweet and fruity. It serves as a substitute for something like plum sauce. Vegetables, that's nice actually. It could do with more different things in it, like some peppers or something like that. The crispy, that's got a really intense sort of chicken flavour. So mixing it together, you need some more of that. That, when it's mixed together, actually works. It is crying out for a bit of rice or some noodles, but it works. Now, of course, if you're a chef, especially if you're an Asian chef, please don't hate me. I'm working with what I got here. I wonder if a spoon might be more effective. In all honesty, this is not very close to anything I've ever had that was authentically Asian or even Asian inspired, but you can tell where it was trying to go. Okay, well, I'm going to finish the rest of that off camera. Back to Studio Shrimp now for the wrap up.
Studio Shrimp here. So day 2 was a bit more tricky than day 1. Not because of any shortage of ingredients, but really just because of the limiting factor imposed by bread. Rice you can do a lot with, wheat flour too, but bread, if you think about it, is flour that's already been committed to a specific form. You can't easily unbake bread. And sandwiches are great, I love them. Stuff on toast is lovely. I eat a lot of stuff on toast, but this is supposed to be about making different meals. Anyway, at the end of day 2, there was some food left, comprising 2 apples, 360 grams of carrots, plus about another 50 grams of the roasted carrots, half the bunch of celery, about a third of the loaf of bread, enough chicken for a sandwich, half the strawberry jam, and about 1.5 litres of that chicken stock that I made. Certainly in terms of general food value, there's enough there for another day, maybe a day and a bit, but there's not going to be a part 3 video because I would very much like to eat something different now. Let's rate those meals. Breakfast, hoops and cheese on toast. I'm giving this 4 out of 10. Beans on toast is something I love, but for me, hoops on toast is a pale shadow by comparison. Also, whilst the problem I've had with cheap hoops in the past is that they were way too acidic, the opposite was true here. The Sainsbury's cheap hoops are really mild and kind of bland. The cheese helped, even though it was only mild cheddar. Lunch, this fried sandwich, crock something or other, surpassed my expectations. This one's getting 9 out of 10. Basically just a big flat sausage in a cheesy fried sandwich, but everything just worked here. The crow garlic has a fantastically deep, savoury onion flavour. That small amount of bread I put in the sausage helped it to hold on to the juices from the meat, and the roasted carrots added sweetness, as well as making it, I think, look pretty. I will definitely make this again. Maybe I'll dip the bread slices in egg before cooking them, but really all this actually needs is a little bit more fat for the frying. Dinner, my attempt at something Asian inspired with almost none of the right ingredients. This was maybe a bit too weird, but it did work. 6 out of 10. Just a bit more variety in the vegetables would have made a big difference. And of course, rice or noodles would have been more appropriate. Still, it worked. The sauce on the chicken was sweet and sticky and a little bit aromatic, and that crispy topping stuff was pretty nice. I think for the next time in this series, I might choose a couple of different categories. Baked goods pretty much constrains the choice to bread, so maybe we could switch that for uncooked dry staples or something. I mentioned in part 1 I would talk a little bit about the plan I put together in the evening after shopping and before the cooking on day 1. Here it is. If you look closely, you'll probably notice I did deviate from the plan in some places. For example, I planned to fry some apple slices to go with the day 2 lunch, and I just forgot. For constructing a plan like this, it was almost a case of brute forcing all of the combinations of food and common cooking methods, and then making some decisions. Bread can be toasted and fried and made into sandwiches. Chicken is very versatile, but it makes sense to cook most of it in one batch. And while that cooking is happening, it makes sense to put some other things in the oven. And then considering those things as potential ingredients, for example, the roast vegetables, those are ideal in a soup. Part of the problem here is that there are only 8 main ingredients. So thinking about what not to use is just as important as what to include. Otherwise, all of the dishes could taste a bit samey. As it was, I was pretty happy with the variety of eating experiences here. Sure, we had 2 things on toast and 2 things that were sandwiches, but they weren't really the same thing twice by any means. On the whole, I'm very happy with a couple of things that popped out from this exercise. So rather than the recipe redemption thing that I do after a failed challenge, I might this time take a couple of the good ones from here and just think about how to elevate those good things further. For example, that fake Danish pastry thing was very, very good in context, but I bet it could be elevated with a bit of vanilla, maybe apricot jam and pears as an alternative filling, tiny sprinkle of cinnamon, and so on. Anyway, I hope this has been interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.